Tonight, drastic measures, new lockdowns in more states as COVID spreads. Washington state bans gatherings involving more than one household. Chicago set to shut down tomorrow for weeks. The U.S. passing 11 million cases.
And that's a very important caution for people not to play Russian roulette over Thanksgiving.
And Dr. Anthony Fauci warns of more lockdowns to come. Michigan announced moments ago that all high school and college classes must go remote. Is the nation's largest school system next? This as hundreds of thousands of college students get set to head home for Thanksgiving. New fears they may bring the virus with them. So how do we celebrate safely? We asked top infectious disease experts what they plan to do on Thanksgiving and who they'll include at the table. The president admits Joe Biden won the election, but then takes it back. Today, more Republicans say it's time to move on. Plus, the violence that broke out in the streets after a pro-Trump rally. And all systems go. 4 astronauts strapped in right now and ready for liftoff. The critical final moments before they launch into space and history.
This is NBC Nightly News with Kate Snow.
Good evening. Across the country, state and local leaders are scrambling to combat COVID as we head into another work and school week. At least 15 states have ordered increased restrictions, made changes to business rules, or rolled back reopening plans just in this past week. And at the federal level today, Dr. Anthony Fauci said it is obvious that delaying the presidential transition is not good from a public health perspective. All this as Americans are planning for the holidays and college students are getting ready to go home. We have all of it covered tonight, beginning with Megan Fitzgerald.
Tonight, coronavirus exploding coast to coast. The U.S. adding 1 million new infections in the last week alone, pushing total cases to 11 million and forcing more states to crack down. Today, the governor of Washington, the latest to tighten restrictions after daily cases surged to a record Saturday.
Now we're facing a third wave that is trending to be more dangerous than any we have seen before.
Washington state now banning indoor service at bars and restaurants. Businesses like gyms will close for 4 weeks and prohibiting personal gatherings indoors with anyone other than your immediate household. And Colorado also hitting a record number of single-day cases and hospitalizations, more than a dozen new counties inching closer to a lockdown. While the governor there is warning against holiday gatherings, comparing Thanksgiving dinner to Russian roulette.
You wouldn't do it with a gun, and you shouldn't do it with a virus.
In Illinois, residents are stockpiling items as officials threaten a statewide lockdown.
We got to stay in and protect our families.
Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot already issuing a 30-day stay-at-home advisory that starts tomorrow. The nation's top infectious disease doctor warns Americans should expect even more state restrictions ahead, but a nationwide lockdown is doubtful.
Everyone is sensitive to what we call COVID fatigue. People are worn out about this, but we've got to hang in there a bit longer.
And in Nebraska, where some hospitals are already full, frontline workers pleading with the governor and the public to do their part.
We have not had to turn any patients away as of yet, but we're really approaching a breaking point here.
The message coming as the CDC predicts up to 35,000 more deaths in the next 3 weeks. And a warning from Los Angeles, once praised for its response to the virus, now reporting its highest number of new infections since the summer surge.
This virus could get so bad, it doesn't matter how you've prepared. None of us are immune from this tidal wave that's coming.
A tidal wave growing every day.
And Megan joins us now from Los Angeles. Megan, how are hospitals handling the surge?
Kate, nationwide, hospitals are near or approaching capacity. Here in Los Angeles, the mayor says if cases continue on the current trajectory, hospitals could be overrun by Christmas. Kate?
Megan Fitzgerald for us. Megan, thank you. Now to more breaking news on the COVID crisis and its impact on schools. One state just ordering all high school and college classes to go online as New York City's mayor prepares parents for the possible closures here. Kathy Park has late details.
Tonight, the largest school district in the country could be shutting down classrooms again as coronavirus cases climb in New York City. Just under 2.6% of COVID tests are coming back positive. The mayor has said if it goes over 3%, schools will go all remote.
Every additional day school is open is a blessing.
But a fractured school year has created a new crisis for families.
It's difficult to have them, everybody be home.
It's been really hard for me to get accustomed to the remote learning.
With infections spiking, some schools in Georgia and Boston have temporarily closed. The same for Sheridan, Colorado.
Let's get out in front of it and not wait for it to happen to us. Let's be proactive and be smart about what we're doing.
Philadelphia area school districts made a decision to go remote too, upsetting some parents.
The strategy is a failure. It doesn't work because this stuff doesn't spread in the schools.
There is evidence pointing to low in-school transmissions. Randomized testing in New York City schools showed a positivity rate of just 0.16% compared to the city's positivity rate of roughly 2.6%. Numbers adding up to be a success story during a pandemic.
And Kathy's with us. Kathy, Michigan's governor just a moment ago announced a big change there.
Kate, that's right. Due to rising COVID cases in the state, all in-person learning for high schools and colleges will be shut down on Wednesday and lasting 3 weeks. Kate?
All right, Kathy Park, thank you. As more schools here shift to online learning, it's a different story overseas. Despite COVID cases rising in Europe and lockdowns in effect, classrooms there are staying open. Sarah Harmon now on how they're doing it.
Tonight, much of Europe is in lockdown, but one place that authorities are keeping open, schools for in-person instruction.
We cannot and will not allow our children and young people's futures to be another victim of this disease.
In Ireland, England, Germany, and France, students are in the classroom.
Do you feel safe sending your son to school?
Yes, I do. I think the rules are implemented in a very, let's say, efficient way.
An EU study finding kids made up less than 5% of all COVID cases in the EU and Britain. And health officials say transmission rates in schools are relatively low. But there are precautions in place. In France, kids as young as 6 wear masks. In Germany, classroom windows must be opened every hour, even in freezing weather. Attending school in a pandemic isn't always comfortable, but across much of Europe, keeping children out of the classroom is seen as a greater risk. But not all European schools are open. In Italy, only the youngest attend class. Older students use distance learning. And Austria says it will shut all schools when its lockdown begins on Tuesday. Kate?
Sarah Harmon, thank you. Dr. Anthony Fauci said today the stalled presidential transition is a public health risk. This morning, President Trump took a step toward admitting he lost the race, but only briefly. Kelly O'Donnell reports from the White House.
The president's veneer of election denial cracked today when these 2 words jumped out. He won. A concession by tweet, building on this Friday verbal slip.
Whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be? I guess time will tell.
Seen as progress by Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson.
It was good, actually, to see President Trump tweet out that he won. I think that's the start of an acknowledgement.
But that was short-lived. 92 minutes elapsed, and the president blasted out this: "I concede nothing. We have a long way to go." A backtrack boosted by Trump advisors.
The president's not conceding anything. Far from it. What he's saying is more, I guess you'd call it sarcastic.
They also called out clashes and violence with injuries to Trump supporters and more than 20 arrests in Washington. Following a Saturday Trump rally urging the president to keep up his legal fight against the Biden victory. This morning, Joe Biden was seen leaving church in Delaware as his incoming chief of staff said a formal transition is needed.
If the president's prepared to begin to recognize that reality, that's positive. Donald Trump's Twitter feed doesn't make Joe Biden president or not president. The American people did that.
President Trump spent his day at his Virginia golf course. While he claims election fraud without evidence, Ohio's Republican governor says it's time to move forward.
Joe Biden is the president-elect.
And that transition, for the country's sake, it's important for a normal transition to start through.
And Kelly's with us. Kelly, Joe Biden is moving ahead with his transition plans. What's next?
Well, tomorrow, Kate, the president-elect and the next vice president, Kamala Harris, will be in Wilmington together, where they will lay out their economic recovery plan for the long term. While it's also expected that some of the big staff additions for inside the next White House at the executive level could come this week. Kate?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House for us. Kelly, thank you. We are now less than an hour away from what will be an historic launch and the next big step in space travel. NASA, for the first time, formally handing over a mission to a private company. Tom Costello is at Cape Canaveral for us. Tom, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. This is an exciting night because this is the first mission for Crew 1, a manned mission leaving at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time. Mission managers have been watching the weather all day. It looks pretty good. On the historic launch pad 39A, the future of NASA, a commercial rocket and spaceship set to carry American astronauts into orbit. NASA's first fully operational mission with Spacex providing the lift.
Crew Dragon, go NASA!
After a successful test mission this past summer with just 2 astronauts. Now the countdown to a 7:27 p.m. liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center. The astronauts headed for a 6-month mission to the space station. Commander Mike Hopkins, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Shannon Walker, and Japanese astronaut Soichi Noguchi. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk not allowed near the crew or the Space Center after testing positive for COVID.
Here they come. The Crew 1 astronauts now beginning their journey to the launch pad.
The crew suiting up a few hours ago, then a socially distant goodbye to family before a ride to the launch pad in what else? Teslas, of course. Now, with 4 astronauts' lives on the line, NASA has formally certified SpaceX to take over a job the space agency has done for 60 years.
Currently, all systems are go.
The goal, allow NASA to focus on returning to the moon and eventually on to Mars.
Tom, so nice to have some good news to talk about, but if they're unable to launch tonight, when's the next opportunity?
Yeah, they would have to wait until Wednesday, 6:15 or so. They have to wait because the current astronauts up on the space station need to do a spacewalk, so that could delay them by a few days.
All right, Tom, we'll be watching. Thank you. Up next, risky return, the extreme measures some colleges are taking to make sure students don't go back home for the holidays with COVID. Just days from now, college students from across the country will start traveling home for Thanksgiving break. But there's concern they could be bringing COVID home, too. Tonight, Blaine Alexander looks at the extreme measures some universities are taking to keep students safe.
It was a semester of scenes like these that health officials blame for outbreaks at colleges nationwide. Now, experts worry that hundreds of thousands of students fanning across the country for Thanksgiving break could potentially bring the virus home for the holidays.
We want them to remember that as they go home, they'll be going to a different environment. They may be going home to families where there may be elderly relatives, and we want to make sure that they go home without the virus.
At Cornell University, officials are urging students to stay on campus. But for those who do plan to travel, the school is offering exit testing, COVID screenings for students preparing to leave. Sophomore Kaylee Zong is one of them. She just got tested today.
All right. And then I'm just going to have you check your name and date of birth. Okay.
Both she and her parents worry about her making the trip from New York home to Florida.
I'm going to be isolated in my room. We're just going to minimize contact with them for a while just because I want to be safe and I don't want to put them in danger.
At the University of Arizona, the school's president, also a medical doctor, says while they offer testing, students are responsible for doing more.
Create this bubble, create a small area that you operate in over the holidays. So the smaller number of people you interact with, the better.
Across the country, more measures. North Carolina's health department is shipping nearly 75,000 COVID tests to schools statewide. In New York, SUNY mandating a negative test before students leave campus. At Cornell and other schools, if students leave but refuse to test first, they cannot come back for the next semester.
What is the safest course of action for students this holiday?
So starting now, they need to limit themselves to essential activities only, which is going to class, getting food, going to the doctor, and exercising outdoors.
For some students, no matter how homesick, it's not a gamble worth taking.
My family's older, you don't want to put them at risk.
We'll probably do a Zoom call or FaceTime.
Staying cautiously connected in a holiday season like no other. Blaine Alexander, NBC News, Atlanta.
Still to come, doctors' orders, our candid conversation with top health experts about the tough decisions they've made for their own Thanksgiving celebrations, and another dangerous hurricane set to make landfall. We're tracking its path. We're back with another potentially catastrophic hurricane churning in the Atlantic right now, the 13th this season. Hurricane Iota is taking aim at Central America. Nicaragua and Honduras are bracing for landfall tomorrow, along with life-threatening storm surge and winds. As we near the holidays, a lot of families are talking about how and if they'll connect in person. But what will those who know the most about COVID do? Our senior medical correspondent, Dr. John Torres, asked a group of infectious disease experts how they're going to celebrate this Thanksgiving.
In the thick of the pandemic, Thanksgiving. We asked 5 top infectious disease doctors across the country, how have your Thanksgiving plans changed?
It'll be my husband and the dog.
Dr. Michelle Barron usually gets together with friends and family, but this year she's worried about her elderly parents.
This year more than ever, it's the year that we're not going to congregate. I so desperately want to see my parents. I keep telling myself the sacrifice is so that, again, for years to come, I can still have them around.
In California, Dr. Ann Liu plans to cook and then see mom and dad, but without the danger of indoor dining.
We would go for a walk together or a hike together, or just hang out in somebody's backyard together, but wearing masks.
Across the U.S., small gatherings are fueling the rise in COVID cases. Is there a number you can put on small group gathering?
Every person that you add to the gathering has the potential to bring the virus to the gathering.
That's why Dr. Tripp Gulick is staying home this year.
Unfortunately, I won't be with my family this year. A friend of mine in Brooklyn said, hey, we're going to have 5 or 6 people over. I'm wondering if you should be the 7th person. And I said, you know what, it's fine this year. Well, no.
And because travel by planes, buses, trains, and cars increases your risk of exposure, Dr. Suzette McKinney's daughter, who is driving home from college, will quarantine before seeing others.
And the plan at this point is that they do that full drive so that they aren't also stopping at a hotel or anywhere else along the way.
When we first spoke with Dr. Stephen Gordon 2 weeks ago, his 2 adult children and new grandson were joining his Thanksgiving table. But now that infections in Ohio are at their highest, plans have pivoted.
Our hospitals are surging. The spread of COVID during these past 6 weeks made us all reassess what we will plan on doing on Thanksgiving is having that kind of virtual dessert.
And while things are different, there are still reasons to give thanks.
Truth and science.
Health.
To people who are wearing masks, to people who are trying to practice a social distancing.
That I get to practice public health.
This incredible human spirit.
And Kate, personally, instead of our own usual gathering that's larger, we're going to celebrate at home this year with just immediate family, including my daughter, who's a med student. Now, she's already started her quarantine and will get tested and join us if it's negative for COVID. Kate?
Doing the same here, Dr. John. When we come back, a remarkable story about finding family. 5 brothers and sisters finally back together, and the inspiring man giving them a home. There's good news tonight about finding family and a young man opening his heart and home to 5 brothers and sisters because he wanted them to be together.
Oh, but not yet. Get marked. It's set. Go.
It's nonstop at the Carter home in Cincinnati.
All right, I think it was a tie.
Exactly what Robert Carter was hoping for.
All right, good job. Give me something. Can you do what? Yeah, go ahead.
One of 9 children himself, when he was 12, he went into foster care. His youngest brother was 2 at the time. Robert didn't see him for 14 years.
So you know what it's like to be separated from siblings?
Yes, ma'am, and that's why I couldn't let it happen to my kids.
2 years ago, Robert took in 3 boys, Robert, Giovanni, and Chiante. Months later, he found out they had 2 sisters and found a way to arrange a visit.
Once the kids got out the car, everybody's just crying, hugging each other. And that's like the moment I knew that I had to adopt all 5 so they could stay together.
You couldn't let them be apart?
Yes, ma'am, I couldn't let them go through the same pain that I went through.
Just 29, the owner of a wig shop, he applied to become their forever parent.
When I was 18, I got custody of my little brother. Then at 21, I got custody of my little sister. So it's like, this is really like what I've been doing my whole life.
You play outside? Does your dad get in the bouncy house and jump around too? No. Who helped you pick out your outfit this morning?
And last month, it finally happened.
Congratulations, you are dad.
Thank you. It's really easy being a father of 5 just because of the kids that I do have. Like, there's some amazing kids. It's a lot louder than what I'm used to, but it's joyful noise, so I'm okay with it.
Go! The oldest, Mariana, used to play the mom to her siblings. Now she can just be a 5th grader.
So like here at the house, I won't even let her make a bowl of cereal just because that's not her job. She's done it for too long.
When he thinks about that day at the courthouse, he gets emotional.
I felt like everything was complete and my life literally just started to fall into place.
What's that emotion?
I'm just relieved. I'm excited. I just feel blessed to be able to have my kids in my life. They changed me. They pushed me to want more out of life, not just for them, but for me also.
Friends and strangers have been contributing to find the family a new house, with Robert's business slowing down because of COVID. Such a wonderful family. That is NBC Nightly News on this Sunday. I'm Kate Snow. For all of us here at NBC News, stay safe and have a great night.